Three now. Okay, and I think we are live. So welcome to LAMSIG Live on a very important date today as well. And IETFL's Leadership and Management Special Interest Group, LAMSIG, have the pleasure of being joined by Katherine Martinkevich. She has been in ELT since 1998, is now currently the Teaching Excellence Lead at the British Council English Online. But she's also been academic manager, coordinator, examiner, director of studies, associate professor, lots of leadership and management roles there. So a wealth of experience that we're looking forward to exploring together. So Katherine, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Paul, and thank you so much for this lovely introduction. I have to say the range of experiences that I've had maybe is big, but it's always been connected to English language teaching. So whatever I did, it was all ELT. So good to be with you.
Brilliant. I think we're certainly on the same page together so we're born and bred ELT. So tell us first of all where you're based and what takes up most of your time at the moment.
Well, I'm based in Ukraine. I live in the capital of Ukraine, Kiev. I have been here all the time, and I'm going through the war period here. I think you've selected the date to have this event today for a reason. Today is the anniversary of the 4th year of the full-scale war. And it's been 4 years for me as well, working under especially difficult circumstances. So if I can share any of those experiences with colleagues on this live today, I will be very happy for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, and thank you for taking the time on such a special and sad occasion, obviously, as it is today, and one that obviously brings back 4 years of not very pleasant memories for you and the rest of your team. So thanks very much.
Well, it's not memories, it's going on at the moment.
Well, so, as well, it continues, of course. Yeah.
It's just that everyone's experience of the war is different, and the way the war unfolds also changes from month to month, from territory to territory. So, for example, in the first months of the war, I wasn't able to work at all. We had to do other things to survive, but right now, for example, Kiev and a lot of other places in Ukraine are experiencing regular mass attacks. So you have to work after a sleepless night. That's a different kind of challenge. Or you have to work when you only have 2 hours of electricity a day, and you have to plan your activities around this, plan for risks. So that's not a memory, that's a real situation that is unfolding and changing all the time. So that's one of the challenges, I guess, for everyone. For example, in a situation similar to mine, you have to be ready for changes. You have to plan flexibly, try to do some risk management, and be ready to think on your feet when you have to perform some duties at work, and at the same time you have to try and keep yourself safe and cope with the stress and the cognitive overload that difficult circumstances can cause.
So there's so many layers of pressures, of additional pressures to what a typical management or leadership role would bring anyway, and these are pressures that, to be honest, for me, would unimaginable. How has that affected your dealings with your team, would you say? How do you approach the dealings with your team differently?
I have to say I'm very lucky. I have a team of academic managers who work directly with teachers at English Online, and they are quite experienced. By this time, they're fully empowered to make a lot of decisions on their own. They know exactly what teachers need and want. So my job is basically to be there for them when they need some extra support or some guidance in accordance with the strategy of the organization. But other than that, I can fully rely on them, and I am grateful to them for being such good employees, let's say. But on the other hand, you do need to have some kind of balance at work, because it's a bit of a difficult situation, obviously, to explain this in a short period of time that we have here. But sometimes when you know that you're going to be in a state of stress for a long time, it's similar to having a long-term condition or disability, which will impair, we know it will impair your judgment. Do you know it will impair your cognitive skills? And at the same time, you have to continue to work, and you cannot tell your team or your colleagues or your line manager that I'm not going to be able to work. Because you have to continue to work. You want to continue to work. But at the same time, you don't want them to make concessions. You don't want them to treat you differently. You don't want them to be nicer to you than your work warrants. So this type of balance sometimes is very difficult to find, because you want them to understand that you're not always there for them after a sleepless night, after bombing. But at the same time, you want them to be able to write to you, and you want them to be able to rely on you. So that's something that I've been dealing with on a regular basis and trying to find the best way to cope with. But it's a work in progress, say.
Okay. No, so I mean, you touched upon maybe the need to have more out of work type conversations, the kind of effective conversations. There, how are you doing? How, you know, sort of physical and mental health type conversations, a lot more than maybe.
Well, that's a different aspect of working in a difficult situation, I think, because what I was talking about is more about managing your workload flexibly and managing your cognitive state and your emotional state. But I would not expect my team to help me with the non-work related things. We have a lot in our plates in our work environment. For this, I would use, and I do use, a lot of other things. I plan to support my mental health in some way every day. And being in this situation makes the need probably even greater for me. So, to give you a simple example, we were talking about how teacher or a manager can feel better in front of the screen, right? For example, stand instead of sit. So, what I do, I still sit, but I like to think with a pen and a piece of paper. And I know that when I'm just looking at the screen, I cannot fully concentrate. I cannot do my best. And I've realized it only when the war started, when this added stress happened all the time. So I started making notes and planning things by hand. And it immediately brought me back to the level of cognitive skill that I was used to having. So that is one thing that I allow myself to plan for. And maybe sometimes planning takes a bit longer, but on the other hand, I'm happy about the quality that the planning is at.
Yeah.
Other things can happen outside work. For example, having support in your family, having friends inside the context where you live, outside this context, exchanging experiences, also doing some voluntary work, volunteering like we do for the LAMSIG committee. Doing other things to support other people that can bring some kind of balance into one's life when you are under such stress. So
Yeah.
it really
Yeah.
helps.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. Um, let's just go back a little bit
Mm.
in your career, and try to go back to before you became a manager.
Mm.
Um, how did you get into management?
Well, there's this book I remember, From Teacher to Manager. I didn't
Oh
read
yeah.
it because that happened a long time ago. And I wish I had because it just happened. And I was a teacher, then I was a full-time teacher, then I was on a project, then I was asked to coordinate, then I was asked to organize something. And it has happened 3 times in my life already. When I changed jobs, when I changed the area where I worked, I just
Mm.
ended up in the same situation again and again. So I guess it's inevitable. And the third time, I think, was the easiest because you already know the drill. You know how to organize things, you know how to put your team together. And
Yeah.
I guess it's just something that goes well with teaching as well. Many teachers find themselves good organizers, and
Mm.
they're also interested in people, in how people think, in how people work, in how people accomplish tasks. And
Mm.
this is very, very similar to management in some way. So I think I'm one of those teachers who find that actual classroom teaching has prepared them for academic management.
So you would say then there are transferable skills from the classroom, the teacher to the manager.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So one of them, as I mentioned, is enjoying organizing things and tasks. I think we all are guilty of that.
We're all mini project managers, aren't we? Yeah.
Absolutely. Although I had to learn a lot of new terms when I started managing projects in all seriousness of business contexts. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think the interest was there from the start. And also, I think an interest in people, in the human element of things, because you can't really be a manager if you don't care about what you do
Mm.
and about the people you work with. And when you do care, then they respond in a positive
Mm.
way. And, then it's much easier for you all to work as a team.
Yeah. Would you say you can't really be an effective manager or a good
Mm.
manager? You can be a manager, can't you? And we've probably all had managers that you thought, hmm, you probably need to change your perspective a little bit there. Yeah, when you're on the receiving end of something that's not
Yeah,
quite
well,
right.
I think we all are learning as we go. So
Yeah.
some of the managers that needed a bit more development in that area, I hope by now have developed
Mm. They've
and
got there.
have evolved. Yeah, yeah. So if they care about the results of their work, they will start caring about the people that work with them inevitably. Well, that's my optimistic outlook on things.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, very true. So looking back again, now what advice would you give your pre-manager self from your perspective now, from where you are now?
Um, To be honest, I think this advice still stands because I can't say I've reached the pinnacle of development
Yeah.
as an academic manager and as a manager overall. First of all, don't expect to understand everything that goes on as soon as you move from teacher to manager, because there are
Mm.
different levels of abstraction when you look at how an organization functions, and different departments, different levels within one department know more or less about the plans that are made strategically. And you just have to assume that there's a goal and there's a strategy that you need to support. But sometimes you just have to be patient and you cannot understand everything that is going on. But you have to help your team survive the changes and move on and deliver the best teaching to to the students.
Mm.
Another thing that Oh, did you have a follow-up question?
No, no, it was just no, it was just gonna. It was that reflection, because I've experienced the same. You know, the manager who rushes in and says, "Right, we're going to change and
Mm.
do it my way," and then the
Oh,
manager
yeah.
who walks in and says, "How do you guys do it? Let's have a look." And then very, very
Mm.
slowly tweaks, and then you think, "Oh, actually, yeah, this is better." So yeah, I think you've touched upon that latter one more than
Yeah,
yeah.
well, I definitely was more of the former when I started.
Okay,
And
right.
yeah, now gradually I'm becoming closer to the latter because I don't know everything and I need to find out more before I start introducing those changes and probably
Mm,
talk to my line manager and find out where we are going with this. And it makes everyone's job so much easier. And then we don't have to change again and again, change the direction unpredictably, but we have some kind of strategy that we can move
that's
towards.
yeah, yeah. Good point. Sorry, you were going to give a second point as well, maybe of piece of
Yeah, I
advice.
had a bit of a list then, but
Good.
I can go on, go on and on because
Great. Yeah.
management as an area of subject knowledge has always been really exciting for me. When I started moving that transition, and I didn't have that great book by Andy Hopley that I mentioned before, I had to find other books to read, and I was so excited about project management in particular, and about process management, and about operations and team management, that I think I was a bit too eager about the theory of all things. And
Okay.
I tried to implement everything in my particular place of work, but not everything is applicable at once. And you need to focus on the things that you have in front of you and not worry too much about the theory behind it until you've sorted out the practical side of things. So
Mm,
that's another piece of advice that I would give to myself as a beginner manager. Don't sweat the small stuff and don't sweat the big theory stuff. Learn to work with what you have, and then gradually, bit by bit, you can expand your knowledge, you can expand your horizons, take a
interesting.
management course, get a certificate, see how you can implement this. But don't try to absorb everything at once.
That's a good point. Many people may have heard of the Eisenhower matrix in order to
Oh, yeah,
prioritize.
yeah.
Is there anything that you do specifically, especially if you're new to a role, to go, right, what's my priorities here? You know, because there are so many different things to take on. How
Yeah,
do you do?
actually, it's a big problem of mine, and I think of many colleagues that I know who are in managerial roles. Sometimes there are so many conflicting pressures, and there's so much collaboration with other departments, with other parts of a large organization that I belong to, that it's difficult to choose which of those tasks or requests is the priority. So you basically just need to block your time. You need to spend a block on this, you need to spend a block on that, and you need to block some time for those
Mm,
urgent and non-urgent but important things in the matrix. So that is a work in progress. It's particularly difficult nowadays because you can block time, but then there's a blackout or there has been a bombing and you cannot work productively after you haven't slept for 7 hours or 6 hours at
wow.
night. So
Yeah.
you have to plan around this. You have to be ready to change your plan. And that's definitely an added complication.
That's something you said earlier on. Yeah, that need to be flexible. So constantly on your toes, ready to move quickly, which is obviously a managerial or a leadership skill, but certainly one that will very quickly lead to well, to burnout, possibly as well. You know, that constant sort of agile approach to management.
Yeah, well, that's why you need to, as I mentioned before, empower
Mm,
your team and make sure
mm,
you can rely on them not to burn out. Delegate or die. So you
hmm
try to delegate, but in a good way, you try to
Yeah.
help them, you try to give them the direction, and then you depend on them to perform the task, and you can rely on them as you are going through some changes of your schedule.
Mm.
And another thing that I've also mentioned, think about your mental health. That's what I would have told my younger self, and that's what I would say to anyone who is going through a difficult time. Because if you the problem is that if you just use your time, from hand to mouth,
Yeah.
if you only do what you are able to do under stress and when you're very, very busy, the risk is that you will only do those difficult work-related tasks and you will lose energy all the time. So
Mm.
sometimes it may be more important to delay a task, negotiate the deadline with the person
Mm-hmm.
who asked you to do it, and spend some time in the park. And then come back with more energy and accomplish this task in 5 minutes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's very useful advice. Yeah. Thank you. I'm gonna probably along the same lines. Can you tell us about a problem that you have had as a leader, as a manager, and how you dealt with it?
Well, not exactly a problem, but a memorable occasion
Okay.
that made me think about how I implement things and how I learn from my own experience. So it became a learning point in itself. In one of my previous roles, I had a team of academic managers as well. Many of them, some of them were beginners. There were 5 people. Some were a bit more experienced, and we had a lot of different areas of responsibility. So sometimes they worked on totally different areas, sometimes they worked in small teams. So it was almost like a cluster structure within our small organization, within an organization. And in order for them to feel comfortable about what everyone else is doing and they are doing, to understand what everyone is busy with and why sometimes they're not able to help, and also to be able to ask each other for some advice based on the current project that they're doing. I came up, well, I started using a project management board that I'm a big fan of, Trello, and
Okay.
it was a great success. I have to say, we used it every week in our weekly meetings. We used it between the meetings. Every member had their own tag, they had their own cards that they were looking after. And I'm really proud to say, even after I left that position and moved on, I know that they were using this board at least for a year. They
Oh
just
wow.
found it convenient. The team
Yeah.
changed to some extent, but the members that remained, they liked it and they found it useful. So, inspired by this success,
Yeah.
in my new role, where I got to manage a similar team of more experienced academic managers, I decided to implement a similar approach. But somehow it just didn't quite work.
Oh.
Some of them enjoyed the process. They updated their cards, they added links to it. I have to say, we did not use Trello. We had to use a Microsoft system for that. It's called the Planner.
Mm.
And maybe it is a bit clunkier, but I have just read that it's been updated recently. So I can't say that it's really bad. I can't
Yeah.
blame the program anyway. So the take up was a bit inconclusive, and
Okay.
I tried adjusting. I tried cajoling people. I led by example. I did all the right things, I think. I didn't push them too much because everyone is experienced and they prefer to do things their own way, and it's fine.
Mm.
So, in the end, after a year of trying, I decided it's not a good approach for this particular team and for this particular context. Maybe because it's solely online, and we already have so many online tools and platforms to keep
Okay.
track of, that adding one more on top seemed a
Right.
bit
Oh,
too
yeah.
much. Yeah. So I just put together a simple spreadsheet with the ongoing tasks and called it a day and said, okay, we're not going to do it. If you don't feel it's helping you, let's not waste time on that. And so it was a learning experience for me that sometimes you experiment with an approach or you read about an approach that worked really, really well with some particular people in a particular context. But only life will show if it can work in other contexts, in other situations. So I hope in 2 months I'll be going to the ITEFL conference and learning about all the cool things that other people have been doing in their classrooms, in their organizations, and I'll be hoping to transfer all of those things. But I think we need to keep our eyes open and not impose things too much, and maybe do it in an experimentation mode. When we take a strategy that worked somewhere else, we need to
Yeah.
test it and be really, really careful and not try to transfer it just the way it worked somewhere else. Because maybe,
Somewhere else.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it's not meant for this particular context.
That's a good point, isn't it? Yeah. Would you actually tell your team, guys, I'm experimenting with this, let's see how it goes? Or would you say, no, I'm going to, would you sort of let them know that?
Again, it depends. It's the whole change management theory, right? Or one of them. How do you get buy-in? You pilot things, you get people
Yeah.
on board, you get champions,
Yeah.
you don't rush into things. Or sometimes you throw people in at the deep end. It
Yeah.
depends on the project, on the team, on the change that you're going to implement. So I guess, like in everything else, context is king.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Well, I think you've touched upon though with that anecdote you shared there, and thank you for sharing it. Is you've touched again on something you mentioned at the beginning of this talk, and you've demonstrated your courage. I think again your courage to experiment and to see something possibly fail, and the courage to say, yeah, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And I think it takes a lot of courage for a manager or a leader to say, mea culpa. I thought it was going to work. It didn't. But what have we learned? Well, we've learned we're not going to use that, but therefore we've actually progressed. And I think it's always, as you mentioned, taking away the learning opportunity. And you said that was a learning opportunity for you. It's a positive mindset, and therefore, isn't it? Yeah. So
Thanks for this, Paul. Yeah, I don't know if it was courageous or just a wish to be efficient and not spend the time of my team on something that is not helping them achieve their results. But all in all, yeah, I think it's good to experiment and to admit when the experiment was not as successful as we wanted it to be, because that's also a success. You get a result that is informative and you can move on.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Just any research. I think for me as well, almost brings our conversation at full circle to where we mentioned about transferable skills from teacher to manager. If you think about it, that's what we do in teaching, don't we? We go to a conference, take a teaching idea, go back to our classroom, have a go. Yeah, it works with this class. Then you try the same one with a different class, and you think, well, it's the same thing. It should work, and it doesn't, and then you work out why.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
This is
Yeah.
very similar. Yeah, lots of overlaps and takeaways. Katherine, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk us through your experiences, share your wonderful advice today of all days as well. Really appreciate it. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. I was very happy to be here.
Thank you.